Okay.
Perfect.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this presentation. The paper title is Systematic Review of Methodological Approaches for Designing, Assessing, and Validating Business Analytics Maturity Models. My name is Freddy Wong, and co-authors are Dr. Michael Lane and Dr. Sophie Cockcroft. We are from the University of Southern Queensland, Australia. We are here to talk about the results of the systematic review that we feel is of great importance to researchers and practitioners who would adopt a rigorous methodological approach for the design, assessment, and validation of business analytics maturity models. Let's go through the agenda. I will talk about the objectives, background, method used in systematic literature review, results, and conclusion. The objectives of this study. The objectives of these studies are to report and state of research on business analytics maturity models and identify how these models can be empirically designed, assessed, and validated. Let me give you some background related to maturity models. Maturity models enable organizations to assess and improve capability and overall performance. They are widely used in many domains, from software development, information systems to business processes, business intelligence, and business analytics. I'll briefly go through the characteristics of maturity models with you now. Maturity levels are archetypal states of maturity, and each level has a set of distinct characteristics. The number of stages or levels can be ranged from 3 to 6. Continuous models allow scoring of characteristics at different levels, and stage models require all elements of one distinct levels are achieved. Maturity scores are numeric values for benchmarking purposes and can be visualized using spider charts. Dimensions are also termed as benchmark variables, process area, capability, and critical success factors. Each dimension is characterized by measures such as practice, object, or activities at maturity level. They are also divided into subcategories, which are second level variables on which key dimension depends. The two common assessment approaches are qualitative that use description and quantitative use numeric measures. The two common assessment methods are self-assessment using surveys or third-party assessment by experts. What are BI and BA? BI is a set of processes and technologies that convert data into meaningful and useful information for business purposes. Whereas BA is a process starting with business data collection and consisting of sequential application of descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytic components. The outcomes support evidence-based decision-making and improve performance. There are debates on whether the concept of BA is a subset of BI or an advanced discipline within the concept of BI. However, in this research, the approaches used in the design, assessment, and validation of both BI and BA maturity models were reviewed. Here comes the justification for systematic literature review. Maturity models are widely accepted instrument for systematically documenting and guiding development and transformation of organization based on best practices. With the increasing diversity and number of published research on maturity models, it's necessary to categorize and analyze this field of research in a systematic way, and this enables the construction of appropriate and methodological rigorous approach to design the assessment and validation of BA maturity models. The systematic literature review follows the guideline by EBSE 2007. First, we define the research objective, define the search string, and conduct the initial search from Science Direct and Google Scholars for the year from 2000 to 2020. After the initial screening, 159 papers related to either BI, BA, or maturity models were screened. Then we review the title, abstract, and keywords. We revise the inclusion and exclusion criteria. 36 papers were further screened, which are BI maturity models or BA maturity models related. And finally, we review the potential relevant studies selected and review the entire contents of those papers. Finally, 9 papers were screened, which are BI or BA maturity model related, which have some details about methodological design, assessment, and validation. This is a summary of the 9 papers included for detailed analysis. 4 papers are BI maturity models related, and 2 papers belong to the same model by Raber et al. 2013. 5 papers are business analytics maturity models related, and 2 papers belong to the same model by COSET et al. 2012 and COSET 2020. Also included in this table for comparisons are 2 systematic literature review papers. Lazzarato et al. 2017 gave most details in the methodological design, assessment, and validation of maturity models in general. Aryavla and Peter 2019's papers is a systematic review of business analytic maturity model of general characteristics with focus of business and technical aspects. This shows that there's lack of relevant systematic literature review in business analytic maturity models related to methodological design, assessment, and validation. This shows a closer look at the comparison of BI maturity models. Both Loftman and Raber's model use RAS and cluster analysis in the design and assessment, whereas Luckman's model used K-means cluster in the design and assessment. This shows a closer look at the comparison of BA maturity models. COSET's model was based on Becker's et al. 2009's maturity model for information technology management. This shows that maturity models from other domains can also be used for business analytics maturity models. These models use variations of adaptive logic in the assessment, and it's observed that most of the maturity models are not empirically validated. We look at another comparison by purpose of use and the origin of the models. Apart from the differences in stages or levels, dimensions, and assessment methods among the models, 3 maturity models were developed by practitioners and 1 maturity model was developed by academia. COSET's model is descriptive in purpose because it assesses the as-is capability of the dimension under investigation. The other 3 practitioners' maturity models are prescriptive. The TWDI's analytics maturity model, the Informs analytics maturity model, and IIA's analytics maturity models are prescriptive maturity models that identified desirable maturity levels and provide guidelines on improvement measures. Practitioners' maturity models also provide free online self-assessment for preliminary assessment. However, a fee will be charged for detailed assessment, and practitioners can provide the management with the improvement actions. This is the classification of quantitative methods used in maturity models adapted from Lazzarato et al. 2017. The 2 design methods are RAS analysis and set theory using qualitative comparative analysis and necessary condition analysis. RAS analysis assumes higher maturity have high probability of success for the implementing capabilities, whereas set theory assumes equal finality exists in multiple paths towards maturation. The three assessment methods are cluster, adaptive logic, and minimum constraints. Cluster method assumes groups of organizations are homogeneous across particular sets of maturity capabilities. Adaptive logic assumes only one single linear path to higher maturity. An organization with high maturity will have implemented more capabilities. Minimum constraints can be used using statistical square distance or Euclidean distance. It assumes that only one linear path to higher maturity, and the overall maturity is the level of maturity of the lowest capability. The validation methods are variance techniques using regression correlation coefficients. The assumption is that organizations with high maturity will realize higher business benefits, performance, and business value. This figure shows the generic methodological approach that can be applied to maturity models adapted from Lasrado et al. 2017. First, we select the quantitative method, explain the data set and the underlying assumption, and then define the maturity level and boundaries. In the case of statistical square distance and Euclidean distance, values for maturity levels are equidistant steps. In case of the Roush analysis, set theory, and cluster, these are empirically derived. And then compute maturity scores and classify organization into the maturity levels. Then perform comparative study of computed maturity scores. Finally, calculated maturity levels can be validated using regression and structural equation models. This figure shows the rigorous approach to developing a business intelligence maturity model adapted from Raber et al. 2013, which opens a new application of business analytics and cluster analysis to assess maturity levels that can be applied to construct business analytics maturity models. However, more empirical studies and evidence are also required not only to design and assess, but also to empirically validate business analytics maturity models. First, it develops sets of items and a scale to be used in a survey instrument. Define the characteristic values for each maturity level. Calculate distance to each maturity levels. Euclidean distance are calculated between each maturity dimension. And classify maturity dimensions into the maturity level with least distance. And calculate distance to each maturity level. And then finally classify each organization into the maturity level with least distance. The calculated BI maturity levels can be used for various empirical research methods such as cluster analysis, regression, and structural equation models. Here comes the conclusion and contribution and direction for future work. This research contributes to a deeper understanding of how business analytic maturity models can be designed, assessed, and validated in a rigorous manner. One of the research gaps identified are that practitioners' BA maturity models are largely prescriptive. Academic BA maturity models are largely descriptive, and in many instances have not been empirically validated in the real-world setting. This is an important finding that emphasizes the disconnect between academic research and practice in the domain of business analytic maturity models. Future research should involve more empirical studies that demonstrate validity and usefulness of BA maturity models in contributing to measuring business value of BA initiatives. That's the end of the presentation. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions related to this paper, you're welcome to discuss with us in the discussion session.
Yeah, thank you, Freddy, for this very nice presentation.